Hello and welcome. My name is Jess, and you're listening to Legal Teeny, a dynamic, hopefully insightful, and somewhat entertaining podcast documenting my experience getting into law school and following my story in the years to come. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm very excited to share what I have to share with you. So grab your Legal Teeny and let's take a sip. Hey, happy Thursday. I am very excited about this podcast because this is something that I'm very passionate about, and anybody that knows me or has worked with me already knows probably what I'll be talking about with goals today, because I have done a lot of work in my workplaces and with different people that I've mentored with goals and how to achieve them. And it's just kind of like a pet project that I've always had at places that I've managed people and tried to really help people to kind of realize what goals they have and what really it takes to get to an end state with that goal. So goal setting and how to do that, how to be successful in that, is something that I have always really just kind of geeked out on. I'm going to break this down for you, tell you a little bit how I approach goals myself and how I have helped other people to do that, and give you some little tips and tricks. So first of all, what is a goal? Right, we talk about them a lot on January 1st and then not too much after that. But what is an actual goal? Basically, if you want to just whittle it all the way down, it is any future state that you want to accomplish or realize. Getting into law school, for example, running a marathon, being kind to people around you, being a better communicator, starting or ending a habit, perhaps. We have all these goals, we have these kind of future states that we're trying to get to. And why don't we? So why don't we just achieve these goals? If I want to run a marathon, why isn't it as easy as, well, I'm just going to follow a training schedule and I'm just going to do it? Well, a lot of times there's no clear purpose or reward in what we're doing. A lot of times we set really shallow goals and don't ever dig deeper into why that's an important goal. And sometimes we set really lofty, unachievable goals that are just going to be challenging regardless and really aren't attainable. You may now be asking yourself, what makes a good goal? Well, you may have heard of SMART goals, which is the acronym SMART, SMART goals. And I like to add a little I at the end of that, so I call them SMARTY goals. And those stand for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound, and I like to add in intentional. So specific meaning it's an actionable item. So it's something that you can specifically say you are going to make a change on, not just like, I want to be a better person. Measurable meaning you can put either a numerical value on it or some sort of a measurement where you can track progress and you can know when you are done with setting this goal and completing this goal. Achievable, what I was mentioning before, just not lofty, not like I'm going to run a marathon next weekend and I've never run a day in my life. That's wild, obviously. I mean, you certainly could try, but you would likely injure yourself pretty badly. Relevant meaning it's important to you. It's something that makes sense in your life. It's something that is relevant to what you are trying to do. Time-bound, you want to stick a time on there, even if it's something that you want to sustain long-term and it kind of be a forever habit or something that you're always going to keep to, but you want to set an initial time-bound goal and you want all of your progress steps, or what I call the mini milestones, you want those to all be time-bound. And then intentional is, don't just land on a goal because it's the first thing you thought of. Dive deeper into why you came up with that goal, even why that was the first thing you thought of, and try to address what root need you're feeling depleted in. For example, when we crave certain foods, it's usually our body's way of saying, I need iron, or I need quick sugars, I'm really tired. So listening to what your goals are and kind of how they present themselves and using that as a way to dig deeper and figuring out why you came up with that goal. When I've worked with a lot of people, often when we dig deeper, the goal shifts a little bit because they haven't really spent time considering the motivator behind the goal. And so then they'll realize, oh, actually what I'm craving is this, or what I really am missing in my life is this, but I just thought that, this other goal I came up with was what I wanted, but really this is what I'm after. And so then we can explore the different ways that we can address that need instead of just, I don't know, I picked a goal out of thin air. Another piece of goal setting that makes it a good goal is that you'll know when you have arrived at the goal or when you have completed your achievement or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. Another piece of making a really good goal is breaking it down into smaller steps or mini milestones, again, which is what I call them. Having clear steps, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this, instead of just, like I said, I'm going to run a marathon. Well, it takes many steps and lots of specific tracking and dedication to your plan. So what can we do to achieve these goals once we have a really good goal? Having a clear reward and outcome is a big part of goal setting. If you don't really know what the outcome is, but you just kind of want to get better at something. For example, I remember a gal that I managed years ago. She came into my office, and I always would have the people that I managed have 3 to 4 goals, personal, professional, work-related or not, whatever they wanted. But they would need to come up with their own goals and bring them to me, and we would discuss them. And she comes in and she says, I just want to be better at my job. And I said, well, that's great. What do you mean? In what way? And she's, I want to be better, and I want to just feel like I'm successful in that. And I want to be on time to meetings, and I want to get my projects done on time, and I want to, do a really good job. And I'm like, okay, these are great things, but none of this is specific. It's not measurable. I mean, I think it's achievable, but it's not, there isn't really any planning behind this. You can't just aspire to be better and think it's going to come out of the woodworks. I mean, you have to plan and dig deep. And so, through conversation with her, we realized that she really had a need to do well on things and feel validated from other people. And so we talked through that, and, it was like a therapy session, honestly, but it was really good for both of us to understand each other's perspective. It was good for me as her manager to understand what she needs, from her supervisor, but also it was really good for her to be like, oh, I'm really craving validation, and I'm really wanting to feel like I'm good at what I'm doing. And how can I, identify the areas of success that I have and celebrate those areas? And how can I identify the weaker spots and really improve on that, and then be able to track that progress? So it was obvious that she didn't have a clear outcome, and she didn't have, really even a clear goal in mind. She just knew that there was this thing in her that was craving to be let out. It really wanted attention, and she just didn't really know how to give it that attention. The next piece is sticking to your plans, but modifying as needed. So reminders for yourself in places that you'll see, sticky note on your phone so that in the morning you remember that you want to do something. Having habits kind of tied together. There's a lot of habit psychology that says if you already have a habit that you are in and you want to add another one, that you tie it into that process of that habit. So if you wake up every morning and always have coffee, like that's just your habit. If you want to add something else to your morning routine or your morning habit, tie it into that practice. So I started taking collagen a while back, and I added it to my coffee habit in the morning, where I literally have it sitting next to my coffee, so that every morning when I get up, I'm like, oh yeah, let me scoop that into my coffee, instead of having it in the pantry or somewhere that I'm not remembering it. I did that also with like vitamins that I'm adding to my routine. I put it next to my coffee because it's exactly where I'm going to be every single morning without fail. And so it's an easy way to kind of loop in habits into something that you're already doing. P.S. There's a whole podcast that I've already done on habits, and you should go back and listen to that if you're interested. The last little section of goal setting that I like to talk about with folks is obstacles in goal setting. So obviously no, path forward or no journey is without its rainstorms and without its challenges. And there are definitely obstacles every time that you go out and set a goal, if you're setting a goal that is, challenging you in some way. The biggest one, at least that I experience and that I've seen others experience, is not seeing enough progress and feeling like, what's the point? Why am I even doing this? It's not working, basically, and kind of throwing in the towel for that reason. And I think that it's kind of multifold on why that is such an obstacle. I think on the one hand, we can be somewhat self-sabotaging, and if you're really afraid that you're going to fail or that you're not going to be successful in a goal, you can almost self-sabotage by saying, well, it's not working, this is just not the right goal for me. And it's easier to have thrown the towel in yourself than to have not met your goal. So a lot of times when we don't see progress, we use that as like an out or an opportunity to say, see, it's not working, I guess I need to do something different. And really, you're just not giving yourself enough time to see that progress, or you're not really committed to the goal, and so you're not actually doing the steps that you identified are going to get you to the end. So that's a piece of it for sure, is the self-sabotage part, and I am, guilty as charged. I do that in goals myself. So and once you identify that, it's actually a little bit, you hold yourself to the fire a little bit more, because you're like, I know what you're doing there. You are afraid of failure. And so you are just going to throw in the towel so that you don't have to be a failure. You can be a quitter instead, which when you say that out loud doesn't really sound any better. Other obstacles in goal setting is something unforeseen. So obviously, losing a job or getting a promotion, a physical injury, someone that you know and love being diagnosed with some sort of an illness, water damage in your basement, as I can personally vouch for. That is something that throws a bit of a wrench into things sometimes. That was a fun month of May and June that I had. Lack of motivation is also a big obstacle, forgetting why you're doing this in the first place, which is why initially one of your steps should be to really identify that core why and write it down, or, tuck it away somewhere that you're going to remember, so that on those days where you're like, I don't actually want to wake up at 6 a.m. to go to yoga today, you can say, okay, I don't want to right now. However, how does that line up with my goal? Let me think about that. Let me consider that, which might be tricky at 5:30 in the morning, I have found. But nonetheless, it can be tough to keep that motivation up. The last little thing related is just losing steam. So think about who knows about your goal and who is keeping you to it. A lot of us can't actually accomplish goals easily without some kind of an applied pressure on us, whether that is social pressure or someone that you love calling you every Wednesday to say, hey, did you do that thing this week? Whatever that pressure is, a lot of us need that to kind of get us up and going. I remember during marathon training feeling very much like I don't want to be yakking on the side of the road when there's all these people watching. And, strangely enough, that was a great motivator for me, is that I don't want to look like an idiot when I'm running this thing for the first time. And, obviously I had other motivators also, and I had people cheering me on and holding me accountable to my training program and yada, yada. But it was also like a secret little, also don't yak on the side of the road. That's a great motivator. So think about that when you're setting these goals. Who can I let know about this to apply a little bit of pressure to myself, not in a hateful way or in a conditional way where they're not going to be your friend or love you anymore if you don't accomplish this goal. That's not the point. But just someone to be like, hey, I'm asking about this thing that you said you wanted to do. How's it going? That is quite motivating, I will say. Now that I have run through the kind of basic components of how to set a goal, what's a goal, how do we know when we've arrived, all of that stuff, the next step for you is to create a goal. And I really encourage you to not wait until January 1st, not wait until some new season in your life when it will be easier. There's no good time. There's no perfect moment where you're just ready all of a sudden to jump into this. If you really want to do something, if you want to go learn to cook because you just feel like you've always wanted to do that and you've never been very great at it, just start making those plans and figure out where the beginning of that road is. You don't have to jump all the way to the end. No one's expecting you to be a master chef, in a week. There are steps you can take, and any amount of time that you want is good. I generally would recommend having about a 3-month time frame for most goals, or even if you have a longer term goal, you can kind of break it down into 3 months or quarters. Something like that, to just kind of make it not so distant, because if goals are too far out in the future, then it's a little bit more, it's a little bit tough to hold yourself to all of those steps, or there just are too many steps. if you're interested in a little bit more help with your goal setting, then I am creating just the tool for you. I'm creating a series where you can use it to basically build your goals with you and give you the tools that you need to be successful in that. Essentially what it is a self-paced, module-based series where you can walk through your goals, dive deep into your purpose and your why, and take the steps to accomplish one goal after the other. So there's different modules and you can walk through each of them. I mean, you can knock it all out in a week if you want, or you can take it slower and take your time really ruminating about each of the modules that you're going through. Up to you, totally self-paced. So that is coming soon. More to come on that, so stay tuned. It's housed through a program called Notion, if you've never heard of it. If you're not familiar with Notion or haven't ever used it before, it is a very helpful tool. It's totally customizable. I talked about it in a different podcast also, but it's basically, the world is your oyster with this thing, and it's very cool the way that you can create pages and you can keep yourself on track with things. There's tables, there's links to other pages. It's pretty cool, but it does take some time and effort to get started on there and get all of it set up the way that you want it. There are a lot of templates online that you can use, and that's really how I've learned how it works. Is I'll grab a template and start kind of just messing around with it and seeing how they've created things in there. And oh, we got another loud motorcycle coming through, y'all. Living downtown, fun times. My goodness, I just don't think that's necessary. Anyways, you can use the templates to learn how Notion works and how to best use it for what you need it for. There's also tutorials online. There's things there's a lot of resources online, and it's a very cool program. So if you're not familiar and you're interested in it, then go check it out. I have a shared template pack that I have on my website if you want to check that out. That is legalteeny.com, by the way. And if you want to go check that out, you can use some of my templates and see if those work for you. I've got several things on there that, I don't know, they're helpful for me. It's the stuff that I use pretty much every day. I've got like a yearly planning, a weekly agenda, a habit tracker. I have a Whole30 meal planning template on there, which I used for my last Whole30, and it was awesome. I kind of created it as I went, and whatever I needed, I kind of added to it. And now I look back at my version of it where I've added all of the actual meals and information in there, and I use those recipes all the time, and it's so great because it tells me if it was an easy one or if it took a lot of effort, and so whatever I'm kind of in the mood for, it's pretty neat. And then I also have a personal growth map on there. So there's a lot of things on there that I think are helpful and can kind of be used for lots of different seasons of life and different people. So check that out if you are interested in Notion. I love Notion. It's such a great system and a great tool, and it's for free, and it's they're not paying me, for the record. Oh man, but it is a really great tool and I use it a lot. So kind of speaking of Notion, I wanted to tell you about the tools that I use for sort of setting and achieving and maintaining my goals, and how I kind of stay on track with everything that I'm doing. I tend to be the type that not necessarily overcommits, but maybe overcommits and does a lot of things all at once. I love being busy. I love having lots going on, but that also means that I have to be very organized with my time and with what I am kind of spending all of my energy on. So I use Notion, and then I also use my Google Calendar to do time blocking and set aside certain time each day that I'm working on whatever I'm working on. And that helps me to really have a clear path forward with my goals. A lot of times if we set a lot of goals, or if we have too much going on in life, then we kind of paralyze ourselves and we're like, okay, I have this list of 100 things, but what do I actually need to do right now? And what's more important? And we bounce around from one item to the next, and we're not really focused. And I still kind of fall prey to that sometimes, and I have to remember, okay, let me get back on track. Let me get back to my Notion and my Google Calendar and my time blocking, and kind of get almost reoriented in myself and see my path forward, and then I can really execute things and knock things out quickly. So if you're interested in that kind of a lifestyle, then this little series might be for you. So more to come on that, but let me talk quickly about my Google Calendar. So the way that I have it set up is that I have different calendars within the Google Calendar. So over on the left-hand side, you can add calendars, and that's just for you to use. You're the only one that can access them. And from there, you can, well, first of all, you can customize the colors so that they're not those awful Google colors. You can decide what color all your calendars are. And then I just create time blocks. So if I say, every Sunday from 3 to 6 p.m. is meal prepping, and if I just stick to that, then the week goes really well as far as how my meals go and if my lunches are prepared. And on, I have classes that I have blocked out on there, and then I have certain study times blocked out on there. I have when I record my podcast on there, and when I go to breakfast with my boyfriend and just things like that. I have it all on my calendar so that I know how I'm spending my time, and I can appropriately make adjustments or say, this isn't really working. I need to spend more time on X goal or X concept. So I change my time blocking, and I try to really stick to it so that I can really map out where I'm spending my time and see if that's effective. All right, y'all, that is everything that I've got for this episode of Legal Teeny. Thank you so much for listening. As always, please follow me on Instagram. It's at legalteeny_podcast for more content and daily little motivational posts. Also, check out my website, which is legalteeny.com. There's lots of goodies on there. Don't forget to rate and review this podcast and follow me so that you're notified whenever my next podcast drops. Thanks so much. This is Legal Teeny, your very own sip of law school.